Good evening. So nice to be here. And we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. A few years back, my wife Deanna and I had the privilege of visiting Israel. And while we were there, we visited the Valley of Elah. The Valley of Elah, as you may know, is where David fought that oversized Philistine. We were with a group of Adventists, and our pastor from back in California, he loves Israel. It has been many times. And he acted as our guide while we were there. And it was very enjoyable because he takes us to the real places. When you go to Israel, they have the tourist places, and it's not always the real place. For instance, there's like 3 places where Christ ascended from. There's 2 places where Christ was crucified. There's, anyway, that's kind of the way it goes. So the place we went to in the Valley of Elah isn't where there was any tourists. We actually stopped on the bus on the side of the road, and what he showed us, though, made perfect sense to me. He showed us 2 hills, right, where the armies were camped, and the valley with a stream bed running through it was right in the middle. And he explained how the Philistines had been raiding in Judah and were now being blocked by Saul's army from returning to their home territory. Do you know where their home territory is, by the way? It would be Gaza. That's where the Philistines were from. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, it looks pretty much the way you would imagine it once you're there. Right? It just all seems to make sense. The valley with tall grass and a stream bed running down, right down, a hill on one side and a hill on the other side, and you can picture the 2 armies up on top of them. The stream bed is dry, or at least it was dry when we were there, and perhaps it runs with water seasonally, with rains, and maybe it always has been that way. I don't know, but in any case, it was full of white rocks of different sizes. There was big ones stuck in the dirt and the banks, and little ones completely covering the bottom, so you couldn't see the ground. It's just thick rocks, thick with rocks. And so here's the opportunity for a boy named David. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Ever since I was a little boy, I'm associated with, because of my name. I can't help that. But I wasn't alone. Many of us, everyone, scrambled down into the stream bed to gather up our own personal 5 smooth stones, right? So there we are, all running up and down the stream bed, each carefully selecting rocks. It's an activity perfect for any child. Perfect for any child. And if you let it, it will make even adults feel a bit younger. It really does. And I guess on the face of it, it's kind of a silly thing, running around looking for rocks. But everyone, and maybe especially the boy named David, was taking it kind of seriously. We all wanted stones that were authentic, just like the ones young David would have chosen. And as we're running up and down, someone comes over to me, and she opened her hand and showed me a stone, and she said, like this. And it was about the size of a silver dollar and pretty flat. And I said, no, that's like a skipping stone. No. These need to go into a sling. That one's not going to fly well. It's going to flip around. And someone else shows me theirs, and how about these? They were small, like like about the size of a marble, a small marble, and something you'd use in a slingshot. I said, no, this is a sling, not a slingshot. And I showed them the ones that I had picked up so far, and that's when I stopped. What made me an expert? Why were people even asking me? What do I know about it? I looked at the stones in my hand. I looked at the stones in my hand for a long time and just thought about it. I looked at the people running around. Some of them had stones the size of marbles. Some had stones more like golf balls, and some were in between, and some were bigger, like too big. I was like, you're not going to get that home on the plane. You're not going to get that home on the plane. Those rocks are too big. And so, I guess here came the question. What size stones? How big were the 5 smooth stones that David chose? Did he choose the little ones? So that it would be obvious that God brought about the victory? Or did he choose big ones because Goliath was a big guy? Now you may be saying, okay, David, I don't know where you're heading, and I'm not sure what this matters. But hear me out, because believe me, I've already thought about that myself. I know the question, what size stones, may be silly, but that silly question was, to me, like a song that I couldn't get out of my head, or like dare I say, a pebble in my shoe. A little stone that bothered me. It would not let me go. You know, it's true that God works in mysterious ways. The question, what size stones, which we're not going to answer tonight. The question, what size stones, I am going to, however, show you mine. And I put a picture up for the people online. Anyway, I'll put these, I have to pull this one off. I'll put these up here. You guys can look at them later. Oh, careful. That's the one for Goliath. Well, the question, as it nagged at me, it made me want to understand young David better. His thoughts. What motivated him? He had to make this choice. What made him? What made him so faithful? What drove him to action? All of it. I wanted to understand it better. Well, my wife and I had a practice while we were there in Israel. Every time we would go visit someplace that night, we would read in the Bible the story about the place we had just been to. And it was just beautiful. Anyway. So that night, after gathering these stones, I reread the story. We reread the story together. That familiar story that we all know so well, right? And in truth, I originally went looking for the answer to my silly question. But I found more. And so let's go to that story. It's found in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, and chapter 17. And if you would like to open a Bible, you can, but they will be on the screen. But we will be, for the most part, in 1 Samuel 17 all evening. 1 Samuel 17, beginning in verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched their camp at Ephes Dammim, between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels on his legs. 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight me and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistine said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. "Behold the Philistine. He is frightening and rude." Does this bother any of you? The thought of someone defying the armies of the living God? Because there's a corollary. Beginning right here, we're going to turn this story into an analogy. And the Philistines in the story will represent the anti-religious, the atheists. They are the people in this world that call our beliefs, our faith, superstition. They ridicule us. They mock us. Psalms 14:1 says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. Their deeds are vile. There is no one who does good." In our analogy, the Philistines are people who give little or no regard to the God of heaven. And Goliath represents their arrogance, because they are indeed arrogant. Today, many people mock God. You don't know any personally. Just pick up, pick up a paper, if you can find one. Turn on the news. Scroll through some news, because they're out there. Now, back in the valley of Elah, this stand-up goes on for 40 days. David's father Jesse asks him to go check on his brothers, take some supplies, and bring back word on how things are going at the front. 1 Samuel 17, verse 20. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up, and set out, as Jesse had directed. David sets out. Did you catch it? Do you see it there? In the morning, he left the flock with a shepherd and loaded up. You want to put the two pieces together there for me? He had the night shift. You see, as a shepherd, you stay with the flock night and day. So David worked the flock that night, and with little or no sleep, he took off the next morning. Don't you love that picture? You know, when I first looked at that picture, I thought that was a spot on his head. Do you know what it is? It's mud. I just love that picture. That's the kind of sheep I think you'd fall in love with if you were a shepherd. You'd be like, I like that little guy. He's crazy. But back to David. He's the youngest of his brothers, right? He works all night with the sheep. He's just a little guy. He works all night with the sheep, loads up supplies to take to his brothers, and takes off first thing in the morning. Tired? Yeah. But you know what? Doesn't matter. He has something to do. He has something to accomplish. And nothing will stop him from that. And this is a simple thing, right? You see, there's something about this kid. And we all know it. Right here from the beginning of the story. But it's difficult to put into words. You know, the Lord said that he was a man after his own heart. I found a poem called The Minstrel, written by the Scottish poet, moralist, and philosopher James Beattie, who lived from 1735 to 1803. This poet, the minstrel, is about a fictional character, mind you, who is stay with me, a musician, a poet, and a shepherd. It sounds kind of familiar, right? Well, this one's in Scotland, though. But anyway, a musician, a poet, and a shepherd. The minstrel. And James Beattie writes this: zealous yet modest, innocent though free, patient of toil, serene amidst alarms, inflexible in faith, invincible in arms. I don't know, it sounds like David to me. Behold the young hero. Okay, so let's go back to 1 Samuel, finish up right there in verse 20 through 24. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines, facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath the Philistine, champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Okay, so in our analogy, if the Philistines are the heathens in this world, then who's David? Well, it's you. Don't you want it to be you? Knowing how the story goes? Don't you want it to be you? I want it to be me. But it's not quite that simple. To fulfill our end of the analogy, we need to have the attributes of David, right? Or at least some of the attributes of David. And so let's continue through 1 Samuel 17, and we're going to look for some of those attributes. 1 Samuel 17:25. Now the Israelites had been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel. David asked the men standing near him, excuse me? What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Okay, so that part we just covered, that's one of those parts in the story, besides the chopping off of the head, right? But that's one of the parts in the story that gets skipped when we tell it to children. And I don't know exactly why. And I one time heard a pastor say that it was a big part of David's motivation. No. But that does beg the question, what was David's motivation? Is it? Am I wrong? Is it the wealth? The princess? The princess. Tax exemption for his family? Well, that's pretty motivating. Or is his motivation instead to remove the disgrace from Israel, to defend God's name? We're going to quickly dismiss the lesser motivation. And let's put this in perspective. If you are looking forward to a crown in heaven, are you looking forward to having a mansion in heaven? Yes? Is that your motivation to get there? No. No, it's not. I hope not, because if that's your only motivation, just the mansion, it's not enough. David is interested in the rewards, but the rewards are not enough to motivate him to go out and start picking up smooth stones. David wants to do his best for God. That's his motivation. That's the attribute that we need. We need to want to do our best for God. Deuteronomy 6 verse 5 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. David does. He does just that, and he wants God to be proud of him. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:24, run in such a way as to get the prize. We've heard that. Paul worked hard for God, and when he was almost done on this earth, he was proud of the way he had lived. And God was proud of him too. 2 Timothy 4 verses 7 and 8 say, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. Not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearing. David's motivation is pure, but also, like a pebble in his shoe, or maybe sandal, his motivation pokes at him. So he talks with the soldiers. He wants to do something. He kind of feels like he has to do something, and word gets back to the king, who sends for David. Saul says, you can't go, you're just a boy, but David is unwavering, and he provides a very compelling testimony. Back to 1 Samuel 17. Skip down to verse 36. David speaking says, your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. David knows that someone needs to go out there and take care of the arrogance out of these guys. And the point is not that Goliath is huge or that he is small. The real point is that the Philistines have defied God, the God of Israel. And regardless of everything else, all of the other semantics don't matter. Someone needs to tell them God is God. Someone needs to stand fast for God. Isaiah 43 verse 12 says, I have revealed and saved and proclaimed, I, and not some foreign god among you. You are my witnesses, declares the Lord, that I am God. David is compelled to be a witness for God. more and more, day by day, popular culture is turning against faith. The world is full of Philistines. They defy God. They deny God. And if they are not hit by lightning, they feel justified in their belief. We are to be witnesses for God on this earth. It is an awesome responsibility, but it is our responsibility. Don't you want to be David? I do. First Peter 4:11 says, if anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength that God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and power forever and ever. Amen. Peter is not giving us permission to speak for God. He is reminding us to speak carefully, as though we are speaking for God, because we are his witnesses. In what you say and what you do, in all things, bring glory to God. So, where were we? Oh yes, the Valley of Elah. And Saul tells David, go, and the Lord be with you. Verse 38. Then Saul dressed David in his tunic. He put on a coat of armor. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I'm not used to them. So he took them off. For all the fine attributes that David had, he was not a soldier. Not yet. And he was apparently substantially smaller than Saul. But he knew well enough to be himself. God wants us to make the most of the gifts and attributes that we have. God is not asking us to be someone else, simply to do our best. Verse 40. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. There it is. He got his 5 smooth stones. It does not say at all what size they are. Wish it did, but no. All right. Let's finish this up. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down, and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you all you have, give all of you into our hands. As the Philistine moved closer to attack, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. Did you catch when he was a witness there? A couple of times. The whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And one more attribute of young David that you see here, but you have to kind of look closely for it. You see it actually in all of this, right? In his lack of fear and in his faith, but especially in that moment when he runs at the giant. There's no hesitation in this boy. David is zealous for the Lord. Being zealous, sometimes that can have negative connotations. It makes us think of fanatics, extremists, radicals. But Galatians 4:18 says it is fine to be zealous, provided the purpose is good, and to be so always. To be zealous always. Don't give up on it. A zealous person has an unwavering commitment to their beliefs. John Charles Rye, the first Anglican bishop of Liverpool, wrote this: "A zealous man is preeminently a man of one thing. It is not enough to say that he is earnest, hearty, uncompromising, thoroughgoing, wholehearted, fervent in spirit. He sees one thing, he cares for one thing, he lives for one thing, he is swallowed up in one thing, and that one thing is to please God." Whether he lives or whether he dies, whether he has health or whether he has sickness, whether he is rich or whether he is poor, whether he pleases man or whether he gives offense, whether he is thought wise or whether he is thought foolish, whether he gets blame or whether he gets praise, whether he gets honor or whether he gets shame. For all this the zealous man cares nothing at all. He burns for one thing, and that one thing is to please God and to advance God's glory. David is that way. Zealous for the Lord. It is an attribute we need too. We are supposed to be zealous too. Isn't that what Jesus said? In Matthew 22, verse 37, when asked what the greatest commandment was, Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind." One thing. Burning for one thing. With all your heart and soul. It all means zealous. So in the end, my silly question, well, it did lead me to some answers. If not that exact question, then at least I learned how to deal with Philistines. And to close up our analogy, if we want to be like David, we need to be zealous. Zealous witnesses for God and proclaim His glory, regardless of the opposition, and opposition is likely to get worse and worse as time on this world winds down. But our path is clear. And maybe David said it best himself in Psalms 86, verse 12. "I will praise you, Lord my God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever." We have a closing song?
Hello, I'm Pastor Frank, and we are so glad that you're part of the Mosaic Christian Fellowship community. If you haven't already, please take a moment right now to click the thumbs up button to like this video, and be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified whenever we share some new content. If you've been blessed by this message, would you prayerfully consider supporting our media ministry? Simply visit MosaicSDA.org and select Mosaic Media as the place to give. But know this, however, we regularly lift you up in prayer, asking God to continue moving and working in your life in powerful ways.